So a couple weeks ago, I spoke on evil, so it seemed only fair that today I speak on joy. You got to even these things out, you know. And when we talk about joy, you know, and just for clarity, I do not have a different definition for happiness. Whether we're talking happiness, whether we're talking about joy, for me it's all the same thing. It's about uplifting our soul. It's about feeling good about our lives. It's about, you know, enjoying. And so I'm not making any difference there between happiness and joy, just so we're clear in this talk and in general. So somebody says to you, you know, what makes you happy? What brings you joy? And, you know, you say stuff like the sunset, right? Oh, sunsets. I love sunsets. Am I the only one? No, sunsets, you know. How about Divine Groove when they're playing? Isn't that fun? Right? Right? Or grandkids, right? There's two good parts to that. One, you get to play with them, and then when they start acting out, you get to give them back. And so it works out on both ends. How about winning, right? Anybody here gets excited and have some joy when the Oilers win? Yeah, and then maybe thinking even more like, you know, how about how you're going to feel when they win the Stanley Cup? You know, Sincerism spine. Now, success, right? When you've worked hard at something and then you're successful at it, you get to feel joy and happy around that, yes? Am I the only one who gets feeling happy about success? No. So we look at all these things and we get our happiness, we get our joy being around loved ones or, you know, whatever, you know, doing something you love, right? When we do something that we really love doing, there's a double-edged sword in there, you know. It feels really good when things are working out, not so good when they're not, no matter how much you love them. And so the thing about all these things is they're external. Everything I brought up has to do with what happens to us to bring us joy. And the thing about being happy or joy or however you want to put it is to create a joy-filled life, you need to learn how to generate joy. You need to learn how, in the midst of whatever's going on, what can I do here to bring joy? Because as in our mission statement, teaching spiritual practices that create joy-filled lives, we know that if we do that, the more joy we bring to life, the better our shot at our vision of a loving, thriving, transformational world. And so one of the ways in which we can generate joy is what Catherine was talking about last week. Now, wasn't that a killer talk? I loved that talk last week, right? And she's talking about story. She's talking about how we need to change our story to something that actually feeds us, makes us feel better about ourselves, because when we feel better about ourselves, there's more joy. And then on top of that, there's my wife, who anytime she sees me upset or mad about something is very quick to say, so what meaning are you giving that? Which sometimes pisses me off even more. But most of the time, you know, I'm like, all right, you know, she's right. What meaning am I giving that? And it's that meaning that really makes a difference. Now, if you're anything like me, you may have a critic going on in your head. And I don't know about you, but I have not once in my entire life had my critic bring me joy. And so the thing about that is if we want to have joy, when our critic is doing its thing and telling us all we did wrong today, is to remember what we love about ourselves. This is a real practice that makes a difference and is important, that we remember what we love about ourselves. Because the more we can get into that idea of what it is we love about ourselves, the more we're generating joy. So one of the things I love about myself is that I am relentless. That is not always something that others love about me. But I can be relentless about going after whatever it is that I have in my sights. Sometimes it's simply the truth. Sometimes it's achieving something. But I never stop. And I love that about myself, even though there are others who like, geez, I just wish he'd stop. But I love that about myself. I love about myself that I think I am the most entertaining person I ever met. I crack myself up. I wake up in the morning and I think about stuff. Now, this is really interesting when it comes to meaning. Because it could be, because the things I'm thinking about are all the things I did that were silly. Some you might think are stupid, or whatever words you make for yourself. So it could be that I could be holding that in my critic way and be really upset with myself about all the things I did that I wish I hadn't done. But instead, what I do is go, oh my God, wasn't that ridiculous? That is hilarious. And I laugh at myself all the time around that, and I love that about myself. I love that instead of getting on my case about what I do wrong, I get the entertainment value out of it, and I get to laugh at myself. I love that about me. And so what I want you to do right now is think, what do you love about you? What do you love about you? And if you're having trouble thinking about that, it's really important, take a little extra time. I'm going to give you a little extra time because I want you to come up with a couple of things, at least two, that you love about you. And it doesn't have to be something that others love about you. It's just what you love about you. Like my relentlessness. Not everybody loves that about me, but I love that about me. And now what I want you to do is turn to somebody sitting next to you. And I want you to tell them what you love about you. Do it now. Tell somebody, and then listen to them while they tell you what they love about themselves. All right. Good. All right, come on back, come on back, come on back. But isn't that fun? Isn't it fun and joyous to say what you love about yourself? Isn't it? Now, for some of you, that may have been uncomfortable. May have felt like bragging. But it's not. It's so incredibly important that we're clear about what we love about ourselves. So now take that second one you were thinking of, turn to somebody else, and trade with them. Do it again. Tell somebody else what else you love about yourself. Come on, do it. All right. Come on back. Come on back. Can you feel it? Can you feel the joy it creates? Simply by saying out loud what you love about yourself. This is a killer practice of just getting into that sense of being about you. And it generates. Because when you're loving yourself more, it's easier to love others more. Right? Because you're in that loving space. And so it generates. That's one way we generate joy. And it's the meaning we give it. Another way we can shift meaning is taking some situations that sometimes feel, not so great, and finding the nugget in there. I did my first eulogy when I was 17. My grandfather died when I was 16. I moved in with my grandmother. And for 6 months, which is about how long she lasted, all she talked about was wanting to join my grandfather. They had been together over 60 years. And that's all she wanted. We got to know each other really well and in that 6-month period. And that's all she talked about all the time was what an incredible time she had in those 60 years with my grandfather and how that's all she wanted was to join him. So when she passed, when she transitioned, I wrote a poem. And my poem was all about how we grieve for the loss of my grandmother, but that I also celebrate that she's back with Pop, my grandfather, and that they get to be together. And I read that poem to my dad, who was pretty broken up about his father had just died 6 months earlier, and now his mother. And when I read him the poem, he asked me to read it for the eulogy at 17. I was honored. I mean, I see that as one of the highlights of my life, is that I got to do that. Here's this situation now. It's not that I didn't grieve the loss. I was really close to my grandparents, especially my grandmother. So it was a heavy loss. But in that was this beautiful, beautiful moment that I got to have, this nugget of where I was honored at 17 to get up in front of like this, about a crowd about as big as this and read that poem as her eulogy. When you look at situations that can feel like loss and horrible, there's a nugget there. There always is. But it's for us to find it. I was there for the very last breath of my father and my mother. And I felt the loss and the grieving. But I also felt the honor that I got to be there for that. There's just something so, and I look at it that way. And you can look at it, you get to look at these things. You get to tell the story. You get to make the meaning. Anything you want. Do you want a meaning that's going to bring you down and just hurt? Or do you want a meaning that through the hurt, there's a diamond that can lift you up? This is what's possible when we pick our story that we get to do. I have had the honor of working with veterans, sitting in circle with them, counseling them, particularly Vietnam vets. Some of them have been through atrocities and horrendous situations. It was not that any war doesn't have that, But these are the ones that I got to be with and speak to and really delve into their trauma. And the most interesting part of when I would sit with them is the glint in their eyes they would get when they spoke about their comrade in arms. When they spoke about those they trusted with their lives. There was that glint of these being with those people were some of the greatest moments of their lives in this horrific situation called war. And I'd be there with them, and I'd see that, and I'd bring that to their attention, and I could feel their hearts lighten. Because when we look at those things that stand out, that actually touch us, even in the midst of war, it can lighten our hearts. It can give us an opportunity for healing. One of the most beautiful things about joy is its healing quality. That's why people do celebrations of life instead of, funerals. Because they want to celebrate the joy of that person who was around. I was at one recently when Jackie's dad died. People were celebrating that life. And that's a beautiful thing. It doesn't, I'm not saying that the grieving's important. I'm all for grieving. But I am also a big proponent of not forgetting about the joy, of being able to generate that. And I watched that happen at that celebration of life. I've watched it happen at many celebrations of life. How we bring that forth. Many of these vets I sat with, they have what's called guilt, survival guilt. That they're the ones that lived and their comrades in arms died. And we'd work through some of that. And what I found in that was that, just like drug addicts, right? The best counselors for drug addicts is an ex-addict. They've been there. They've done that. I've got to sit with those people who work through and have become these ex-addicts who now support other ex-addicts. So they have found joy through the most horrific thing they went through by giving to others. And that's what I found with these vets too, that the ones who really came out of this, who really found a life, who were able to move on and grow in a good way, were those who found a way to give back. So that the survivor guilt turned into a survival motivation that turned into a joy that they were actually able then to contribute. Are you following me on this? Because in the end, it's the contribution we make to life that gives us our biggest joy. There's a saying, you can never get enough of what doesn't feed you. That's why people who have success always need more. That's why people who have money always need more, because you can never get enough of what doesn't actually feed you. And what feeds you is bringing your gift, your contribution forward. And the more you do that, the more you bring it forward. And if you're stuck in a place, because I've seen people get stuck in a place where, well, I can't make money at that. So I'm doing something else that I can make money at. And I'm not saying don't do something to make money at. We all got to, eat, have roof over our heads. But contributing your gift, I promise you, is the most satisfying thing you can ever do in life. It took me to 67 to find this place for me to contribute what I want to contribute to life, what is my gift to give. And I have to tell you that the journey to get here was totally worth it. It was absolute. I don't care that it took this long. It was worth it. To just be able to give what is mine to give. And it is incredibly satisfying. I do not walk out of here on Sunday thinking unsatisfied and, I can't, I need next Sunday to do more. It isn't like that at all. I walk out of here each Sunday going, that was great. This was so much fun. And then the fact that I get to do it again is like icing. That's how you want to feel, because that's where the joy is, but it comes from the contributing, the giving. And I want you to know that if you're sitting there thinking you don't have a gift to give, you're wrong. You do. Because every one of us who is born into life comes with a gift to give. We're going to practice this giving of gifts at the Christmas Eve evening service. I've put together a ritual where we're all going to get to give and receive. It's going to, everyone here, anyone who shows up, it's going to be really fun. Because that's the heart of life. It's in the contribution. And I know for each and every one of you that you have that. You have that contribution to give. It is your place of joy. And you know it because you love doing it, whatever it is. It could be 14th century literature. It doesn't have to be, this big thing, but it's important to you. It matters to you. And because it matters to you, it matters to me. And because it matters to you, it will matter to others. Maybe you haven't found your audience yet, but I promise you, you will. I did. You all showed up. This is what's possible for each and every one of us. And it don't even matter what age you are. You have a gift. And the more you bring it out, the more you contribute it to others, the more joy and richer your life will get. It just goes that way. Don't worry about what you get. Worry about what you get. Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. Be happy. But think about the gift and the different ways in life we can give it. Because that's where the power is. That's where the presence is. That's where the joy is. Because the more joy-filled lives we create, the more we are going towards our vision of a loving, thriving, transformational world. I love you. Thank you.